Hello there everyone, my name's James and I'll be bringing to you a new YouTube show. Yes, hopefully a good one. It's about wrestling and it will be called Rockefeller Wrestling Review, in which I will speak about various degrees of wrestling topics, specifically from the WWE, for the simple reason of it's the most popular and biggest wrestling company in the world. Sorry, sports entertainment, can't call it wrestling. Anyway, obviously, without boring you, as you know, recently, many of you wrestling fans, there has been one star in particular is shining incredibly bright. He's red hot. He has been for 6 months now, and he's more over than anyone else on the roster. That's none other than Daniel Bryan. Now, Daniel Bryan, I've always been a fan of. I've always thought he was a good wrestler. I always heard rave reviews about him in Ring of Honor. And obviously, when he came to WWE, obviously delighted. You know, you can find so I seldom saw anything from Ring of Honor, which, you know, call myself a wrestling fan. What am I? But anyway, no, he came in and obviously saw potential. In fact, obviously, well, he was sacked before anything could really be done. Obviously, in the Nexus 8, as it was, sneak attack on John Cena and everyone else when they caused havoc, and obviously he violated the PG rules. Now, anyway, obviously he was re-signed a couple of months later in the SummerSlam main event. Brilliant. But the problem was, for some reason, Vincent K. McMahon decided that this wrestler isn't very good, doesn't rate him, and Michael Cole, who by now had turned heel, was going to be the on-air burial campaign, if you will. And for some reason, Daniel Bryan didn't have any personality. That's what they said, not me. And he was just useless. Now, as it goes, obviously, to the shock of many, he was given Money in the Bank the following year in front of a smart city in Chicago, which obviously helped. And since he become world champion, all of a sudden the bloke has just been on fire. I've always rated him in the ring, don't get me wrong, but he's incredibly over. I can imagine him being this over. And I've been watching wrestling for 21 years, and I don't think he could have, that's for sure. So there you have it. So there's a good possibility that he's going to win the Money in the Bank this year. I'm amongst those who believe that, and possibly even win the title. To think he could be WWE champion. All right, I know he was world champion the other year. For him to be WWE champion and now pushing him as forcefully as this, that is a shock. But it's a pleasant surprise. Now, it has to be said recently that WWE has been impressive. I said I've been watching over 21 years. I've seen it all. Times where you want to throw the remote out the window. All right, that sounds a bit silly. And just thinking, why am I still watching wrestling? Obviously, a lot of people sort of say, oh, well, you know, bottom of the barrel, social, you know, you people, sad, blah, blah, etc., etc. And I was thinking, you know, you might be right. This is garbage. There was times when it was. But I think this recently, I'd say, certainly from sort of post-Extreme Rules onwards, I've noticed a big improvement. I think so slowly but surely things are starting to develop a bit more. The storylines are improving, and they're actually pushing people over. I mean, you haven't got to look at it, as I said, obviously Daniel Bryan, but Dolph Ziggler as well. About time, obviously, he cashed in post WrestleMania Raw to one of the biggest pops you ever in your life, which was great. And they realised, hang on a minute, this bloke, it's futile trying to keep him as a heel. The bloke's incredibly over. Fans want to cheer him. So what he can do a double turn. Now, bear in mind, funny enough, it was 16 years earlier that the most famous double turn of all also took place in that same arena, the All-State Arena in Chicago. But it was a great bit of booking because you got sympathy for him. Obviously, Del Rio was incredibly aggressive, exploited a weakness, obviously his concussion, and it couldn't have been done any better. And I thought that was fantastic, and I believe that's an underrated match as well. I'm not saying it's a 5-star classic, but I still think it's underrated because the selling and psychology of it all was outstanding, in my opinion. Obviously, at that pay-per-view also was my favourite wrestler was Return CM Punk. Primarily the reason I bought that pay-per-view. Didn't disappoint, got a massive face pop to be expected. And obviously now the face side is a little crowded. But nonetheless, it's exciting. We're enjoying it at the moment. I think it's fair to say I think most people are enjoying themselves watching WWE at the moment. Because whereas, say, early in the year, particularly up to WrestleMania, it was such a pedestrian effort. I mean, it's meant to be the biggest sports entertainment, can't call it wrestling again, biggest sports entertainment spectacular in the world, or something like that. Now, yes, as everyone knows, WrestleMania is the be-all and end-all in professional wrestling. But yet, the build to it on occasion was a shambles. It was boring, it was dull, it was uninspiring, and you think, hang on a minute, this is meant to be the biggest show of the year. And it was, I mean, I'm not a fan of the 3 hour Raws, that doesn't help. But nothing seemed to happen. That's meant to be the show that everyone watches, television show, that more than SmackDown, and yet there was nothing near enough. It was just the same old, same old. Obviously, it didn't help that the 3 main matches were all incredibly predictable to figure out. And it just seemed like the effort wasn't there. Not helped, obviously, certainly by the fact that there was no in-ring interaction. The Rock was, half the time, was nowhere to be seen, which some WWE champion that is. And it was just frustrating. And I've said I've been watching for years. There have been times where I've gone on and off. I can't bother this. I've seen every WrestleMania. But I was just thinking, hang a minute, how much more of this can take? At the end, I've got better things to do in my life than spend 3 hours, or if you count SmackDown, 5 hours, watching drivel, which they clearly don't care about. But thankfully, things are starting to improve. And that's good. Obviously, we've seen the Shield. Okay, and obviously they got beat again on SmackDown. Sorry to spoil it for you. They got beat against SmackDown, but they've been built up in such a way that people believe in that. Pardon the pun. And that's what you need to. But when people can believe in something, that they can suspend disbelief, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And I think it's nice at the start that there's been a few good storylines, good pay-per-view payback. Money in the Bank, which traditionally has been a terrific pay-per-view, 3 years running, obviously, been a success. It was at WrestleMania. As we know, obviously, Money in the Bank 2011, well, a lot of people's opinion, and mine as well, is one of the greatest pay-per-views in the history of wrestling. So I think there's no doubt about it that things are looking up, and it's about time as well. So hopefully there'll be more of that. But as I say, I do believe, I have no doubt about it, Daniel Bryan will win the Money in the Bank. The only downside at the Money in the Bank is the WWE title match. I have to say, I'm not really a fan of John Cena. I'm certainly not a fan of Mark Henry. But what I will say, despite the fact that the match is going to be poor, I thought that angle they did the other week was terrific when he faked retirement and he fooled everyone in. And I think that was a fantastic piece of acting there, because remember, obviously, they are trying to act as well, and it's convincing people, and because obviously the emotion was shown, all of a sudden that makes him a hot heel. I don't like the idea of Mark Henry being pushed, and they persisted him for almost 20 years now. Well, yeah, almost, well, bear in mind it was 96, so yes, so 17 years to be exact. And obviously he's only pushed for one reason, the old bodybuilding federation. But it's nice to see that at least it was an interesting storyline. Even if I don't want to see the match, at least it makes you intrigued about it, and that's what it's all about. So as I said, next time there will be more WWE. There'll also be more TNA. Don't worry about it, you TNA fans. There will be more of that. I've been watching recently. There have been some good shows, and it's good. In general, for North American wrestling, things are looking up. So more of that next time from the Rockefeller Wrestling Review. Thank you very much.